Hello, so in this video, sorry I'm in semi-darkness, we're going to go through the route of the main crusade. I'll probably get as far as the Battle of Antioch. Okay, I might not quite reach Jerusalem. So, let's bring a map up on the, better light now. So, basically, the People's Crusade we know was a great failure. Okay, and what happened shortly afterwards was the main crusading forces arrived, and they didn't arrive in one go in Constantinople. They arrived in dribs and drabs, um, and they received kind of a cautious welcome from Alexius. Because remember, there was some what's the word? They didn't exactly trust each other. Some of them, so some of those southern Normans, for example, they've been enemies of the Byzantines before, so Emperor Alexius was a little bit cautious of them, and he wanted to try and maximise as much as he could from the Crusaders. So he was helped by the fact they arrived in dribs and drabs. So, for example, the first major leader to arrive on the 20th of January 1097 was Godfrey of Bouillon, and Emperor Alexius was on his throne looking all very regal, and basically, he extracts from him this promise that any land which was formerly owned by Byzantium, he would return back to Byzantium. This was then followed by Bohemond of Taranto in April, who also agrees on this. Baldwin of Boulogne eventually submits to this, although Raymond of Toulouse doesn't do. Um, Around 75,000 troops, including 7,500 well-armed, fully armed troops, were amongst their forces. So a much more considerable force than the People's Crusade had had. So let's look at the route they took. I've got on map, so you don't have to see me in semi-darkness. Let me just make it bigger. So what happened is that the Crusaders then arrived in Constantinople, met Alexius, blah, 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 and their first target was Nicaea. This is where the People's Crusade had essentially failed. Kilij Arslan, the leader of the Seljuk Turks, had actually left the area. He thought the People's Crusade was a bit of a damp squib. He didn't think the other Crusades would be up to much, so he'd actually disappeared. So when the Crusaders arrived at Nicaea, they kind of met a city which Kilij Arslan had not been in for a little while. He soon rocks up though, and basically quite a long siege takes place of Nicaea. From the 6th of May 1097 to the 18th of June 1097 is the siege of Nicaea. And in the end, it is tipped in the Crusaders' favour by Emperor Alexius, who does, through a Greek called Taticius, Taticius, helps them capture the city. So the city falls to Byzantium. According to Stephen of Blois, one of the Crusader leaders, relations between the Greeks, i.e. the people of Byzantium, and the Crusaders seem quite cordial at this point. They both together helped to capture this city. However, the Crusaders then continue onwards. Alexius gives them Tacius, and also gives them provisions and stuff, and kind of lets them go on their merry way. So they continue going along, and the next place they come to is this battle at Dorylaeum. Now, because there's so many troops, they're quite well spread out, and Kilij Arslan decides he can attack whilst they're all quite spread out. And his aim is to try and kill Bohemond of Taranto and Robert of Flanders, who are at the head of the army. 5 hours of battle takes place before the rest of the crusading army kind of catches up with Bohemond of Taranto and Robert of Flanders, and together they defeat Kilij Arslan and the Seljuk Turks. Around 4,000 Christians seem to have died, about 3,000 Muslims seem to have died. And as a consequence of this, Kilij Arslan's kind of like a spent force in many ways. And the Crusaders then begin to head towards Antioch. Now, going from Dorylaeum to Antioch, there's quite a few mountains and things. The main enemy was not really the Seljuk Turks. It was hunger, it was the weather, it was the terrain, etc., etc. En route to Antioch, Baldwin of Boulogne decides to split off from the main crusade and head towards Edessa. So you had this slight splitting of the crusading army. One group going with Baldwin of Boulogne to Edessa, the rest heading towards Antioch. Now, Antioch was in northern Syria. It used to be a Byzantine city. It used to be one of the first Christian cities as well. Saint Peter was supposed to set up the first church in Antioch. So there's lots of cultural things in Antioch. Also, it's on a major trade route as well. So there's also those financial reasons for Antioch. It's on the coast. It's got massive, great big defences. And at the time, it was being defended by a Turkish warlord called Yaghi Siyan. Yaghisiyan. Now, the Crusaders were quite lucky when they arrived outside Antioch to begin their siege, because the other Turkish leaders, the other leaders of Syria, seemed to be at daggers drawn with each other. You had Ridwan of Aleppo and Durkuk, Duquq, of Damascus. There were two brothers who seemed to hate each other. And so they began the siege in January 1098, and it takes up until May before major Muslim forces begin to head towards this siege, led by Kerbogha of Mosul, Kerbogha. The siege of Antioch is long and drawn out. Many Christians died of starvation besieging the city. Many Muslims inside the city were dying of starvation. And in May, they hear news that 40,000 troops led by Kerbogha are on their way. And Bohemond of Taranto comes up with this plan to say, whoever captures the city, they should become the ruler of the city. All the Crusaders tend to agree. Little do they know that Bohemond of Taranto had actually met like a traitor within the city, a man called Feruz. And to cut a long story short, he allows them to sneak into the city. They capture Antioch. Loads of people are killed. But literally within 24 hours, they become the besieged themselves as Kerbogha's troops are outside. At this point, there seems to have been quite low morale amongst the Christians. They're hungry, they're starving. Stephen of Blois had actually left, and on the way back through what is now Turkey, he bumps into Alexius and his army and says they're probably all dead by now, so I won't bother carrying on. So Alexius doesn't. So not a great help there, Stephen of Blois. It's during this time that Peter Bartholomew, I can't say that word, found the Holy Lance. And on the 28th of June, the Crusaders decide to have one last big fight outside the city and try and smash through Kerbogha's troops. In many ways, it looks a bit like a suicide mission. However, they managed to win. Kerbogha is defeated, he retreats. According to Thomas Asbridge, he says that desperation held the Crusaders together. And so this was a major victory for the Crusaders, the capture of Antioch, and it allowed them then the route towards Jerusalem, which is what I'll discuss in the next video.